and welcome to Talk This.
It's dangerous to podcast alone.
I'm your could the dodge button be the same in both games host, Madelyn.
I'm your could the sprint button be the same in both games host, Emma.
And thanks for tuning in to this week's show. It's Save Data Side Quest. It's 6 weeks in gaming. We made it to March.
Woo-hoo.
Time marches on.
So true.
As I will say like 17 times in the next 4 days.
I'm looking forward to it.
Not on this episode, not to you. Just in my, I'll be like, wow, it's March. Can you believe how time marches on? I can already feel it. That's going to be my,
Once you've got a good pun, you have to make sure that everybody in the universe has heard it.
So Emma has played a lot of games, is what I hear.
I sure have.
But I know what the people want. I know what the people are waiting for.
I know. I spoiled this in our last side quest.
Have you missed what's coming next, listeners? Have you felt a void in our 6-week side quest?
I know I have.
Void no longer.
Yes, we are returning to the world of trails. The world of Reen. With the newly christened Reverie Report.
Wouldn't it be incredible if I had retained anything about what happens in these games from you talking about them for years? I, like, if somebody, like, gun to my head, pirate gun to my head, was like, please recount what happens in Trails of Cold Steel, I'd be like, they wear outfits.
Fair, I don't feel like I talked about it in a very structured manner, so, like...
I'm telling you that one day when you're bored and looking for more work to do in your life, you should do a supercut of just Emma's Trails of Cold Steel dispatches.
Yeah. Well, anyway. When we left off last time, I had finished Cold Steel 4, which was the final in, like, the Cold Steel arc, right? And so this is Trails into Reverie, which is sort of like a transitionary epilogue sort of game to Cold Steel and the prior arc, which was Zero and Azure, just like the Crossbell arc. So the way Reverie works is you have 3 protagonists, each with their own story route, that you can sort of do in orders that you would like. Eventually you'll get locked as you try to keep going down a person's story path, and you'll have to go somewhere else. But generally you can jump around sort of as you would like to in the game. So 3 protagonists are Lloyd, who was the protagonist of the Crossbell arc. He's like Reen if you, like, took out the self-loathing and, like, added patriotism.
Huh.
I feel like it's sort of his general vibe.
What an interesting way to describe a character.
So what's going on with him is Crossbell is this city in the universe of this game that has been sort of passed around between nations for a long time, and is finally on the verge of gaining its independence. Well, independence. It's still going to be subservient to a different country, but in a friendlier way. So
cool.
It's better. But they're right on the verge of it. They're really excited. Obviously, nothing's going to go wrong at the signing ceremony, right? And then,
nothing ever does. We learned that this week, right?
Yeah, we learned that this week.
People get together and they sign treaties, and there's nothing newsworthy about that process.
Anyway, signing ceremony, the Governor General Rufus, who was the Empire's representative in Crossbell during the war that was in the last 2 parts of Cold Steel, comes back. He says, actually, it's mine now, and I'm using Crossbell as my seat to take over the entire continent. Reen is revisiting his hometown with his students. So he's introducing his kids to his parents, which was a very cute little scene that made me cry a little bit, honestly.
You're a mess.
And his arc seems to be one, like, actually confronting the fact that he has, like, real depression, right? It's not just like he's sort of beaten down by war, like he just has issues that he needs to actually talk about and possibly work through. And also the crown prince of the Empire of Erebonia has gone missing. So
Whoops.
he and his students are tasked with finding him. And then finally, we have C's route, which is a mysterious masked man who, unfortunately, whose voice modulator I can hear through. But it makes me confused that I know who it is, and it doesn't really make sense. I don't know how it's possible. But anyway, he's taking the moniker that Crow, who's Reen's best bro, he used to be a terrorist.
Yes, I remember Crow, who used to be evil and now is buddies.
But he was a masked guy who used to call himself C, and now there's this different masked guy who is taking the moniker of his old group as well as C for himself. But it's not Crow. It's pretty clear that it's not. And he's teaming up with a bunch of child assassins for some purpose that's unclear at the moment.
Sorry, he's teaming up with what?
2 former child assassins. I had to do required reading for this game.
Oh, great.
One of the things you can do in this series is you can pick up books. And these books oftentimes, like, hint at other things going on in the continent or things that might go into future games. So it's very recommended that you read the book 3 and 9. It's not actually book-sized. It's like a long short story to sort of understand these two. So 2 former child assassins and also a very advanced doll that they found in a case.
Okay. I just want to be really clear that, like, this could all be stuff that you are totally making up. And I'd say, okay, sure.
That's how stories work, Mel.
I know. Sorry. Yes, I know that stories are made up. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I just mean to say this could be a stag old pony boy situation. That's only for me and Emma. Yeah. That joke will make sense to no one else.
And that's sort of the setup that we've got here. So I played through Act 1 of all of them, which is sort of like establishing these storylines. And then I played a little bit more of C's route because it's the most mysterious, I guess. Anyway, but we got locked out. The girls are waiting for their crepes. And apparently I have to do something in one of the other routes for the story to progress past there. So I assume Reen has to come make them crepes or something. Is like the
course.
Key here. A funny little note. So the menu always shows like art of the characters that's currently in your party. And in C's route right now, I only have 2 girls in my party, and they're very short. So when you open the menu, there's just like eons of empty space because it's used to having at least 1 tall man in your party at a time. Which I got a lot of amusement out of.
Yeah, honestly. No girl height camera.
No girl height. Anyway, that's the Reverie update. So you can look forward to regular updates going from there.
You can't call it the Reverie update.
The Reverie report.
Thank you.
The update to the Reverie report.
The Reverie report.
Yes, exactly.
The RRR.
Yeah.
The RRR.
Yeah.
That'll come back. You said you had so many games.
I do. So should I continue?
I do feel like you probably need to do another, given that I have 1, 2, 3.
Okay. Well, as a little note, I was talking about Fantasian last time. I've ended up putting that down for right now. Mostly because I wanted to start Reverie, and there's just a little too much vibes overlap, I think.
Yeah.
Right? I wanted a little bit of differentiation going on. And then I finished Slitterhead before I started Reverie.
Oh, yes.
It ruled. It rocked. Went hard. I totally understand anyone who bounced off of it or came out of it like, no, I didn't like this that much, but unfortunately it was super cool. So, there's a like shift to the mechanic that they introduced kind of late. That's really, really fun and unexpected and very cool. I don't know, the vibes are just like, they're good, you know? I don't have like too much to add to that. I think they probably could have cut a couple of rarities who are like the special characters that you can control.
Yeah, I remember.
And that would have been made things a little tighter and cleaner. But like, I don't know. It was fun. It was good. So that's my final review of Slitterhead. Is it rules? It's not a like a masterpiece game, but also it rules. So there you go.
Well, listeners, you may remember that I made a New Year's resolution, I think in our like New Year's end of the year episode, that this year I'm trying to finish a game in every calendar month. Now, I regret to inform you, listeners, that I have failed at that both in January and February, but here's why. So Final Fantasy Rebirth is, I will talk actually about Final Fantasy Rebirth, but it's so long. I have played 50 plus hours of this game. It is so long. It is really messing up my ability to finish a game in each month. However, at the end of January, I identified for myself, oh no, I took a break from playing Final Fantasy for a little bit after my rush to the concert because I wanted to give it a little space to breathe and I'd really been binging it. And so I was like, oh no, January ends in 2 days. I need to pick a game that I can finish in 2 days. And I've never played Firewatch. And it was relatively cheap on the Switch and I wanted it to be a game I could play on the Switch. I did talk about playing whatever that game was that we talked about a couple weeks ago, whose name I've already lost. The puzzle game.
I don't know.
I'll look it back up. But I decided, no, I'm going to play Firewatch. Which, yeah, I was just sort of as someone who talks about video games, I probably should have played this game in the video gaming canon. So I finished Firewatch on February 1st, maybe February 2nd, which I have given myself the leeway that counts as a January finish game. Similarly, spoilers for later, I have not yet finished Final Fantasy Rebirth as my February game. I am feeling like if I put my mind to it, I can finish it before my work trip next week. And that I feel like I will then count as a February finish, and then I will get back into a real actually finishing a game every month. So yes, I've given myself some extensions, but I think I can do it. I'm at the end of chapter 11 in Final Fantasy now. So I feel like if I really push, I could do it. Anyway, what I'm talking about right now is Firewatch. It was good, right?
You figured it out? You didn't get lost forever?
I mostly didn't get lost, except for I told you about the end.
Because we talked about navigation in games, right?
Yes.
We were talking about Firewatch.
Yes. So, no, I was really bad. I won't repeat myself too much about that, but I am really bad at the navigation. I really spent a lot of the game just looking at the map. And to be fair, I was playing this game on a little Switch screen and it was a little laggy and I was trying to finish it relatively quickly. So maybe I didn't do as much stopping and smelling the roses as I could have. But I didn't feel really drawn to doing that. My Henry was very guarded.
Mm-hmm.
I did not talk about my wife with Delilah at all. Mm-hmm. I just made I was the character choices, this man does not want to talk about this. And is that the richest version of this choice that I could have made? Probably not. Ultimately. But it felt like the truest one.
Sure.
I did accidentally, because I was sort of engaged in what I was doing in that game, miss a stop on the subway twice. Well, no. I missed the stop once, and then I came perilously close to missing my stop on the way home. I was like, oh my god, I'm here! But on the way up, fortunately, I was running early to the thing I was going to. I was like, 110th Street. That's not where I'm supposed to be. So it was engaging in that sense. I did have, a couple of critiques of the seminal walking simulator here. I'm bad at the navigation, so fix that.
Sure.
Please.
Put it into Madelyn mode.
Didn't really think about I was playing this and I was like, oh, game about big fire. Here in January 2025.
Thematic.
Didn't do it on purpose. Just to be clear. Wasn't ooh, big fire, let's play big fire game. Just for clarity. Just was looking for something short. At the very end of the game, I got totally stuck. Had to look it up on Reddit, how to get out of this one section in a way that I know, if I was a human being, would not have happened to me.
Right.
So shout out to, and I gotta give a shout out to this Reddit man or woman, person. Sorry, one sec. I don't know.
Reddit feature.
Redditor, I guess,
Yeah.
is what we call them, right? Where is this? I've gone back too far. Sorry, I'm just searching through my camera. But if this person hadn't asked on Reddit the exact same problem that I had, I both might never have gotten back to it and like gotten through it. I might have just given up. And also I would have felt stupid. So shout out to Knight_Thastus for post on our Firewatch 9 years ago. How to bracket get back into the cave bracket parentheses / spoiler close parentheses question mark.
Yeah, good.
Let me just read it. I got to the kids' hideout and the instructions said to go back into the cave. How do I do so? I've been wandering around for a good 30 min, but can't find out how to get back in or go freaking anywhere. That's exactly how I felt. I was like walking around in circles. I was like, please, wasn't the entrance to the cave right there? Why can't I step up on these rocks and go back where I came from? That's the big danger of the walking simulator, when you feel like you should be able to walk.
Right. That is troubling.
But the thing that almost ended it all for me is that right at the very end, I'm like running to catch the helicopter to leave because the fire's big. And I am like 10 minutes from the end of the game. Now, the game autosaves relatively often, like you save relatively often, whatever. But I'm running. I'm like, oh, I'm running. I want to pull up my map. I pull up my map. Everything freezes.
Ugh.
Game crash. Game says, game encountered a fatal error. Close application. And I was like, no, you gotta be kidding me. But because there's nothing I hate more than that in the world. No. But like one of my biggest video game pet peeves, and why I'd never finished Guardians of the Galaxy from that fatal PS4 crash a few years ago, is I just don't like replaying stuff.
Yeah.
But fortunately, it was only like 15 minutes. However, for the rest of the game, I saved like every 30 seconds. Just to be sure.
Sure.
Anyway, it's interesting, right? It's a game that it feels like we've moved past in some ways, is my take on Firewatch. Like, obviously, it's doing a lot of things, and I understand why people like it and why it was like sort of a phenomenon. But also, in the end, it sort of just ends, which I realize is kind of part of the story of the game. But I do yearn for endings that take more of a stand sometimes. Mm-hmm. I yearn for a stance from our authors here. But I was glad I played it. It feels like something that it's good that I kind of crossed off my haven't played this list.
Well, good.
Yeah, I thought so.
Speaking of fires, just as an FYI to any listeners who might be interested, there is a California fire relief bundle on itch right now. Has stuff like Tunic and Tangle Tower and a bunch of other pretty cool games. So if you're thinking about fire and if also games,
hearing about this made you think, fire.
Yeah, you can check that out.
Yeah.
Well, I'll go into my strangely enough match 3 themed section.
Okay.
So I played
Have you been okay these past 6 weeks? Sorry, go on.
I played Battle Chef Brigade, which has been on my backlog for a little bit.
Battle Chef
Brigade.
Okay,
Brigade.
Cool. Just checking.
So you play as Mira, who wants to join the super elite, like, chef squad thing.
Brigade.
The brigade. Yeah, exactly. And to do that, you have to, like, win a bunch of, like, cooking battles. So the structure of this is, like, you go out into the little, like, the hunting area. You hunt and forage a bunch of ingredients. These ingredients have various, like, little colors and amounts assigned to them, right? And then you put them in, like, your pot or other cooking apparatus, and you stir parts of them to match the colors together, which form, like, bigger amounts of that, and keep going from there to increase the score on your dish before you serve it within a certain time limit. Some of the judges might want, like, more like water theme in the dish. So you want to have more like strong blue elements in your final dish, or grass or liquid, fire,
but I understand,
or balanced. Which I found to be like a really satisfying way to like gamify cooking, I guess. It sort of it felt like cooking, even though obviously it's sort of fantasy tinged in its presentation, right? But like the stirring bits, like the putting in ingredients bits, you know, it feels kind of like cooking in like a weird gamified kind of way. I found the story like interesting at the start, but it starts to add like a bit of stuff I would consider kind of fluff that they probably could have cut. And the ending is pretty underwhelming. Essentially, there's like some weird plague going on, right? With the creatures and the thing that's caused by like somebody like doing like bad experiments with stuff. So like halfway through, you get additional mechanics where like you have to excise the poison from your dish as well before serving it to the judge.
That's important.
Yeah.
Generally.
So, like, if you stir these poison things too much, they'll explode and weaken the other elements of your dish. If you leave them in, that's also bad. But you can also mash them together, and they'll temporarily create a space where you can, like, stir one of your things into, and it'll up it a rank. So that adds a little bit more, like, complexity to the stirring game, I guess. It was fun.
I like that sentence a lot.
It was fun and mechanically very fun. I wish it had a little bit more oomph to the stuff going on in the narrative, but I had a good time with it, and I'm glad I crossed it off my backlog. And then I got Spirit Swap lo-fi beats to match 3 to, which is came out recently. It's sort of mostly a dating sim, but you occasionally have like versus match 3 matches with the people that you're hanging out with, which like, so you can only move them horizontally in this one. You can only swap horizontally, and you can, you know, send bad energy, whatever, bad stuff over to your opponent's side of the board based on like different combinations of like whether you get a cascade of stuff or if you make certain shapes with the colors and you have enough like energy stored up, you can cast spells that do like specific things either on your side of the board or on their side of the board, like send a bunch of trash over there that they have to clear, or like clear a huge chunk of your own board, or you know, various other effects that you gain as you go through. I'm not really into, like, I was thinking about this, and it's like, it's not that I don't like dating sim elements in games, right? I do tend to find those fun sometimes. I think it's just when it's like first forward.
Right, when that's the game.
Yes. I feel this way about just romance.
Just in general.
Just in general. We need to be like sword fighting first, you know? No, but in movies and shows and stuff, I tend to like romance elements. I just can't watch, like, I have trouble just watching like full on like this, the romance is the plot stuff, you know?
I've been in a real, just because they happen to all come in at the same time in my holds list, I've been in my real romantasy girly era. My reading. I don't know how you feel about those.
I don't think I've read any romantasy, if I'm being
You're not
honest.
gonna read A Court of Thorns and Roses? You don't feel like you need to be...
You know, I don't know. We'll see. If I ever need to be informed, I guess. But yeah, it's just really not my genre, I guess.
I'm reading Fourth Wing now. Remind me to tell you afterwards what that girl's... I'm about to make so many enemies here. Her last name is Sorengale.
Yeah.
The Dragon Rider.
Hell yeah. That's good. That's a good name.
Anyway, my point being, well, I guess my question for you is, where are romantasy video games? How long until we get those?
Right.
I guess that's what Baldur's Gate is, huh?
You're right. It is. You're right.
The people yearn.
They do.
They yearn.
They yearn for it.
Anyway, this one is just romance.
Yeah.
I get it.
I mean, you can befriend them too, right? There's an option where you don't have to pursue any of them romantically. I played enough of it to like friend zone everybody, and then was like, okay, I think I'm good with this now.
Yeah.
But I did genuinely really enjoy sort of the versus match 3 matches. They were very fun and like challenging to my brain, I guess, in a way that was like refreshing. So that kept me playing longer than I probably would have otherwise. It's just really enjoying just sort of that simple. I mean, it's simple, but you have to really think really fast on it because it starts going up really fast after about a minute. And so I had a lot of fun with that part of the game. And if you're, it seemed perfectly charming, right? Like it seemed like a fun, relatively well-written sort of dating sim thing. So if you're more into that sort of elements, I think it's probably a good one to check out as well. So that was my match 3 section.
I thought you said you had 3 match 3 games.
No, just 2 match 3 games.
That's disappointing.
I'm sorry.
I mean, I'm glad for you. I'm already worried that there were 2 of them.
Right, I'm really leaning into my woman gamer element here.
Women love casual things.
Yeah, exactly.
Is it Final Fantasy time?
Sure, tell me about Final Fantasy.
Final Fantasy Rebirth. Yes, so as I said earlier, right? So last time on the podcast, we had like just been to the Final Fantasy concert.
Yes. Yeah, we had been to it. For sure.
Perhaps we ought to talk about it now. Because for whatever reason, we didn't talk about it, even though we'd been.
It was fun. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was great. They played Queen's Blood.
They did. I was
really
worried they wouldn't play some of the weird little side music.
Queen's
stuff.
Blood got the biggest cheer of the night.
I know, because it's a good song.
It's hard for me to not start like screaming it right now, but I won't.
They
played
the Stamp song too, which I was happy about.
They did play the Stamp song. They know what the people want.
They do. You're right.
Here's some shade. Can't that conductor be a little better at public speaking? Is this not his job?
I guess so.
He was fine. He was totally fine. I just feel this way whenever anyone gets up there and they're like totally fine at public speaking when that is like a significant part of their job. I'm like, just like a little more preparation.
Yeah.
Just a little more.
Sure.
Not even like they're like when people are naturally bad at it, it's one thing. But this guy's like, man, like have some cue cards for yourself if you need them. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Anyway. And I successfully watched the ceiling of Carnegie Hall for the last 20 minutes or whatever.
Very good.
So I did not end up spoiled, which I sort of didn't expect. But not nearly enough cosplay.
You're right. Yeah.
That was really disappointing relative to the Kingdom Hearts Orchestra one, where I feel like there were some awesome outfits.
Yeah. I like seeing, it's like a good opportunity to like make your formal version, right? I mean, a good opportunity to put in tons and tons of work into your costume.
Yes, a good opportunity for that, for my enjoyment.
But I always, the fashion at video game concerts is always so funny to me because it just runs the absolute gamut.
It really does.
Formal amounts of formal wear from, I came in my PJs too. Actually like dressing up or like cosplay dressing up even,
Who did we see? There were so many Sids, right? Didn't we see
there were a ton of Sids.
An improbable amount of Sids for his level of involvement in this game.
I saw a fabulous Femme Vincent. I don't think we saw no, we did we see one Honeybee in Cloud as we were leaving?
Maybe at the very end.
Yeah. Some various Tifas and Aeriths.
Yes, to varying degrees
one
of
person
effort.
in a Kate Sith onesie.
That was good.
Yeah.
No Barretts.
No Barretts.
So it was good. Would recommend going. They played the Sephiroth song twice, basically. So
yeah.
One Winged Angel. That's what that song is called.
Yeah.
Even though the other one is not called that.
Yeah.
But
the other is Sephiroth something. So
Reborn,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Spoiler.
I guess.
I'm just kidding. Anyway, speaking of Reborn, so yes, so like I said earlier, I gave myself a couple weeks kind of off of Final Fantasy after the concert, just because I played it so intensely in the lead up to that, that I let myself take a break. And then even when I got back to it, so where I was before the concert was sort of like, we'd gotten to Cosmo Canyon and we hadn't really gotten to the town part of it yet. We were just kind of running around the canyon and just arrived there. So I did, when I got back to it, go, oh, I'm not on a deadline anymore. I can just run around.
Yeah.
Run around the canyon. And that was engaging for a time. Although, as you've said to me many times, Cosmo Canyon, for a while I was enjoying the navigational challenge, and eventually I got sick of the can't figure out how I get here vibes.
Yeah, I like the contrast of going from that to Nibelheim, where you can just go anywhere. Basically.
I can't figure out how to get to... There's a spot in Nibelheim I'm going to have to, like, call you and be like, how do I get here? I know how I get there. I have to get the stupid chocobo, but
yeah,
whatever.
Once you get the chocobo, I mean, you can go anywhere.
But you can't get that till the very end.
No, you can get it right as you arrive.
Oh.
You fool.
I only got led there by the proto-relic. Oops.
It's okay.
They weren't marked on the map.
Okay.
I thought it was really weird that I hadn't found a chocobo the whole time, but whatever.
It's okay.
So yeah, but what I discovered in my sort of like aimless meandering around Cosmo Canyon is that I actually think that the way that the concert forced me to play this game, which was don't pay too much attention to the side content, like do a little of it if it's interesting, go all in on Queen's Blood, take Emma's advice and do most of the proto-relic stuff, but like don't worry too much about the rest of it, is actually unfortunately the only way that I'm going to be able to finish this game. It's not that I'm not enjoying it, it's just that, as I talked about last time, the whole plot of the game mostly feels like a side quest. And so doing like even more like inconsequential side quests, I just start to feel like I'm never going to finish this. And I have been trying to do more synergy abilities though for you.
Good, they're fun. So
anyway, so yes, so I last time was in like I think the beginning of chapter 10. I've now finished chapter 10. I basically finished chapter 11. Like we just have to fly away, and I'm doing the proto-relic before I do that. I probably should fly away to fight the Queen's Blood player that's keeping me from ranking up. I have so many more Queen's Blood wins than my level, and I would like to be acknowledged accordingly.
Yeah.
Overall, did the original Final Fantasy have voice acting? 7, not the original one.
Oh, I don't think so. I don't think they had actors until Advent Children.
So, how did they do the whole red thing?
So in English, it's kind of not there in the original.
Right. Okay, I had a
translation.
feeling this is where this is going to go. Continue.
In Japanese, I think that the personal pronoun he uses for himself changes.
Sure.
And just sort of generally his speech pattern changes. It's just not really carried across in English.
Right. Well, hard to.
Yes.
That's fascinating. That's really fascinating.
So I think like there were some, I can't remember specifically, but I feel like I remember even some like people who had played the original 7 being like, what's happening?
Yeah.
What? Why is he talking like this now?
Yeah. I have been appreciating over the past couple chapters how the game has been forcing me to play characters who are not in my party. I think in like a relatively elegant way.
Yeah.
Mostly. And how they've like created sections where you navigate the world as each of the characters as well. I think that's well done and has been mostly fun and interesting. Like I liked Red's whole arc was in some ways, if like almost too neat, right? Like pretty successfully packaged in ways that I actually like. In some ways I like the stuff that they were doing with Barrett more, but it didn't feel quite as successfully packaged to me. It's like he thought his friend was dead and now he's not, but now he is dead and we are not going to talk about it at all. And he just died right in front of us. And Red's did feel like sort of a relatively successful, contained arc, even if it's like the whole thing with his dad at the end is like a little too neat. And also I knew exactly where that was going, but it's fine. It was good. And we got to see the big old whale, so that's cool. I love a Moogle as much as the next gal.
Yeah.
And I love the look out, my son, or take care of yourself, my son, or whatever it was.
Get in there, my son.
So good. Very good stuff from Kate Sith. Who at Sony
wants you to push boxes? I don't know.
Is in charge of the environmental puzzles. Like, who's like, this is how... They're just so dumb. And they aren't satisfying to do, really. Like, it took me a while to get the hang of I'm throwing boxes as Kate Sith.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I actually sort of didn't understand how it worked for a little while. Because I'm stupid. Like, I'll acknowledge that. But it did never get fun. It was just the same thing over and over. The one where it's like, oh, you have to throw 3 boxes on the elevator to be able to use it. What was the point of that? What did I, the player, get out of that?
That's fair.
Experience? Yeah. After I've already been doing nothing but throwing boxes for 20 minutes.
I do like the part where they're just like on the elevator where it's like, you can throw boxes here if you want. And when I played it, I did not hit a single box.
I feel better about that. I got 4 and I thought it was really embarrassing.
I like halfway through after I just hadn't hit anything, I really just started laughing at losing it at myself, which did not help my aim, actually. So I got some enjoyment out of being humbled, I guess. But I do see your point, yeah.
Yeah, it was not helped by the fact that I had not played as Kate Sith at all.
Oh, yeah. I can see
really in my party. And so then I was like fighting, and I'm like at recommended level, basically, which I'm really glad about, by the way. I'm glad the game has not yet gone like, uh-oh, you haven't done a ton of side quests, like F you.
Yeah.
I'm glad that I'm maintaining recommended level, but I died like 4 times to one of those fights.
I think that boss is considered, the solo boss is considered pretty difficult. That's
not the one that I died at. Several times. I did die to the solo boss once. I died to like adjudicators right before that. I like had to put the game down.
That's always good though. It's good to put the game down occasionally.
But I did with that solo boss. The game really generous with me. I'm like right at the end, it's gonna do some kind of attack. There's like, I'm doing some kind of attack with the Moogle. I see something pop up on screen. It's like so close to dead. Kate Sith fell unconscious. I go, no! But it's right as that boss died. And Aerith and Barrett come barging back in and I guess rejoin my party and save me.
Yeah, good.
I was like, I can't believe I have to play this whole thing again. And I didn't. So that was really kind.
Good.
Also, we love a vampire.
Hell yeah.
How did they do this? Who was like, there's going to be a vampire and there's going to be a cat and there's going to be a dog. It doesn't look anything like a dog. Like, who approved this?
I think it's funnier, like, the cat and dog required. The vampire, optional party member.
Could I have recruited him?
He's not optional in Rebirth.
Okay.
So don't worry too much.
I sort of got freaked out when I left because I felt like I should have been able to talk to him, and then he like listened to us talking and went back to sleep.
An angry
and I was
nap.
like, "Uh-oh, did I mess up?"
He's having an angry nap right now, you know.
Okay.
Relatable.
Very relatable. Anyway, I'm still enjoying it, but I really need to push through. I really need it to be done. Ultimately, I think I'm going to get through this game and be like, "Great, I'm excited for the next one. Nothing freaking happened here."
Sure.
So, ready for that. Preparing myself emotionally for that.
All right, well, back to me. I'll do a few. I played and finished Citizen Sleeper 2. Which
I need to get that on my list. I think about that like every week and a half or so since you've mentioned it. I've been like, probably I should play that.
I found it in general more difficult than the first game. It does eventually become kind of cozy, but it has this new like contract system where you go out like on a job, which makes it so that even if you're like comfy with fuel and money and supplies, like it can introduce different ways to cause stress upon you, that I think keeps it a little bit more unpredictable and having to make you adapt throughout the whole thing.
Okay.
as opposed to just sort of settling into cozy gardening like you eventually do in the first one.
Yeah. Or if you're me, you just do the whole time.
Yeah. You're also not set in a specific place in this one. You're jetting around the belt, so like various different
that's interesting.
planets. For like the first half, you actually like have to keep moving all the time because of an external like story element. Like you've escaped from someone and he is chasing you. So the longer you stay in one place, the closer he gets to catching up with you, and the more sort of errors start happening on your frame.
Interesting.
So for a while you really have to move. Eventually that pressure goes away, but you still probably have to go from place to place to fulfill your story missions, right? You also gain like a crew over time. I think that the crew members that are central to the story are good and interesting. There's a couple that I just forgot occasionally was like on my ship. Like, I would go out on contract and be like, oh yeah, I have these people here.
Sometimes that's how it be.
It felt a similar way to Slitterhead, where I was like, we could probably have cut some of these people and just, like, focused on, like, the central members of this crew, honestly. And maybe that would have been smoother.
Editing is hard, though, right?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I know. Yeah. But yeah, a little bit like that. But, you know, the characters that I liked quite a bit. I found the story pretty satisfying. There were a few threads that, like, you're being reset at the very beginning of the game. Your buddy Seraphim is resetting you so that you're no longer dependent on stabilizer, which, if you remember from the first game,
I do remember.
Had to make sure that you were getting stabilizer in order to, like, keep all your dice, right, and keep from dying. So, but your reset's interrupted, so while you're no longer dependent on stabilizer, you've also lost a lot of your memories from before this point, including whoever Seraphim is to you. And the game doesn't really follow back up on that ever, or give you an opportunity to follow back up on that ever. You just are sort of making a new relationship with this guy that apparently you have a history with, but you never get to know that. You don't talk about it ever, which felt like, to me, like a missed opportunity. Like, I don't know, if this was me, I would be pressing this guy all the time, being like, what exactly happened? Where were we? You know, what how did we, you know, do this? Whatever. And it just doesn't.
Some people aren't as annoying as you are.
I guess so. You know, I'm just a little annoying freak, I guess. But I still found the story quite good and enjoyed it in general. I think I think both of the games are very ambitious, and I think this one is flawed in different ways than I thought the first one was flawed, but, like, they're flawed in ways that are interesting to me. So,
is this still one person making this one, or has the team
I think
grown?
It's a slightly bigger team.
Just curious.
Yeah. But yeah, I had a good time with it. I also played After Love EP, which was a game from, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting his name, but the original creator of Coffee Talk. He passed away a couple years ago, right after this game was announced, basically. And the team has finally finished it, which is, it's appropriately, I guess, about grieving. So you play as Rama, who is a musician in Jakarta, and it's been a year since the death of his very serious girlfriend Sinta, and he is finally coming out of his self-imposed isolation. He wants to get his band back together. He wants to return to his life, but Sinta is also a constant presence in his head. He hears her all the time. Which makes the very, very fun and good and satisfying choice of Sinta as the only voice-acted character in the game. So you are constantly hearing her louder than anyone else around you, right?
Fascinating.
I thought that was a really, really cool choice. But because of this, because she's not there's ways to interpret it that maybe she's part ghost, but mostly she's the enabling voice in Rama's head. That's like on his side no matter what, who is sometimes hostile to him trying to reach out or talk about things, that just really wants him not to get better, right? So it can be very frustrating. It was very stressful. It was a very stressful experience. I felt very frustrated with Rama a lot of the time, like in a good way, right?
Right.
And yeah, I don't think it has like a calendar system. In what's becoming a running gag for me, I didn't really realize that you were picking a romance route.
Oh no.
So I got onto it a little bit late. Once it was like after I was hanging out with the local mean in a fun way, like record store owner, and like after like 3 hangouts I was like, oh, this is a romance. Oh. This is a romance route. Okay, I guess we're doing this now.
Yeah.
But the calendar system, like you can hang out with like 3 different people, you can go to therapy, you can busk for money, you can go to the coffee shop and perform there solo, like different things you can do. And I think the calendar system is a little bit stringent, where if you really want to do things, you really have to commit like from the get-go. Like you have to decide right away what you want to do, in a way that doesn't feel totally natural. But overall I still felt like it was a very effective experience. So you play 1 month where he's trying to get his band called Sigmund Feud back together.
Of course.
But
love that.
he's sort of frozen out his bandmates for a whole year, and some of them are considering other life paths now, right? Of like moving on and trying to continue their way into the future. And Rama just kind of wants everything to be the same way it was a year ago.
Right.
So it's trying to figure out whether like this is the band should continue going forward, what that looks like, and stuff like that is sort of the main through line here. The fun thing is there's like a gig at the end of the month that's going to be like their ultimatum, right? Like, is this still working? And they're opening for a band called La Alpha Alpha. But the music of the game is the real La Alpha Alpha's music. So they're opening for La Alpha Alpha, but their music is La Alpha Alpha's music, which I thought was really funny in a meta sort of way. Anyway, I really like the music. I'm a La Alpha Alpha fan now, so there's that too. Yeah, so that also quite good. Even though I found it rather stressful and frustrating at times, it was in ways that were satisfying. And then finally, just as a brief note, I started replaying Transistor, which old Supergiant game that I really, really love, as part of my resolution of doing more replays. So I'm just sort of at the beginning of it again. I'm still really loving it. I'll probably write a little blog on it or something when I finish it. So
I own Transistor, I think, but I haven't played it.
I like it a lot.
Maybe one of these days I can ever finish Final Fantasy.
Do you just have Pirate Yakuza left?
Yeah.
So, okay, we'll end with that because we're both playing that, I guess. I just have one last little section to go through in that it's Steam Next Fest until like tomorrow Monday at noon or whatever. So as I do like every third Steam Next Fest now, I played a bunch of demos. So I just wanted to highlight some of the ones that I thought were interesting. So I'll make this fast, okay?
You got it.
So I tried a game called Am I Nima, which if you've heard of like Infinite Craft, there's like this web game where you have like words and you stack them on top of each other to make new words, and you try to build different things out like by association, right? So this is like you play as a girl who it seems to have been resurrected recently, and your mother is trying to figure out whether you're the real Nima by like probing your memories. So you learn new words, and then inside your head you can stack these words on top of each other to make associations to try and find the right response to convince your mother that you are really Nima.
Okay.
I found I thought that was a creative way to make use of this sort of mechanic. And also just had great sort of creepy vibes and art direction that made me interested in where he goes. Also, clearly it was like a 20-minute crafted demo, which I feel like is always the best way to do these in Steam Next Fest.
Very true.
I played Kill the Music, which is like a Vampire Survivors alike, but with a rhythm game element to it.
Ooh.
So there's like auto attack, and you pick up different instruments and boosts for those instruments in each stage. But also if you're pressing on the beat, it does more damage, and you build up damage multipliers over time, right? Nice. It's got a very cool style to it, very fun music. I'm very curious if it'll have any sort of story element to it in the full release. I played Fumehead, another like a short crafted demo. It's a turn-based combat game. You have two characters. You have like moments of opportunity where you have various abilities. You can choose between one of three to either perform, or you can burn one, which will remove it from the combat until the end of that battle. And if you do that, it'll move to the next moment of opportunity where you can choose until you run out of abilities, essentially. So it's about like sort of building your shield up to block you from damage, doing damage to your enemies, negotiating with shields that are possibly blocking you from taking down enemies. And also everybody has creepy worms in their brain that are slithering and crawling around.
A lot of big creepy energy
here.
Yeah.
That seems like it's playing with like themes of identity and stuff like that, which I like. So I'm very interested in checking this. It seems like it's pretty far away from any sort of full release, but I'm very interested to keep following it and checking it out. Played Rift Riff, which is like a tower defense game where a bunches of enemies swarm towards your tower. You gain juice over the course of like a stage, and with juice you can build more towers that will pick off the enemies before they get to your main tower, right? So it's sort of like a little puzzle tower defense game where you try to set up the right types of towers in order to keep the enemies from attacking your sort of main station. Very systems sort of forward game, but I found it very satisfying to go through.
Nice.
I played the demo for Promise Mascot Agency, which is by the Paradise Killer devs. Features Kiryu as the main role. Kiryu voice actor. Playing a Yakuza who's been banished to a small town in order to build back up this mascot agency. Mascots are like a species of people in this world.
You don't mean like Onomichio, do you?
There's no Onomichio yet, but it is like mascots, yeah. Your main mascot currently is a pinky finger. So
okay.
It's like a bunch of like misfit, not very good mascots is the ones that you're collecting, right? Great. And you're trying to build up this agency and take down the corrupt mayor of this town. So you drive your truck around to find mascots and jobs. You have to offer mascots benefits to want to work for you. So you can like be like, you can get time off or a performance review, right? Or I'll give you a little bit more like money on the jobs share, right? So you have to offer them things until they're interested in working for you. And then you send them on jobs. They can get into trouble, in which case you have to send people to go help them out. So my tofu mascot got stuck in a too small door, for example. Had to go help him. Yeah. As this funny little presentation of like tofu versus small door. Just very fun vibes. I'm very much looking forward to that full release. And then finally, the big one, the last one, they released a demo for 100 Line Last Defense Academy, which is the first like really big solo kind of release from Tokyo Games, which is where Uchikoshi of 999 and AI Somnium Files and Kodaka of Danganronpa, it's their company.
Right. Powerhouses.
It's like a Fire Emblem slashed with Danganronpa aesthetics slashed with sort of Uchikoshi writing preoccupations. So this is my hole. It's made for me. Right?
Yeah.
This is just like the first like 5 hours of the game. It carries over to the full release that I am so mad I have to wait almost 2 months for still.
You can make it.
It has a pretty rough...
Green to hold you over.
I think the first hour is kind of rough. They have a lot of setup that they're trying to get through at like maximum speed. And so I think it's kind of unavoidable, some of the problems that it has. But once you get to like the first main battle, I was like so locked in. They start introducing like all of these different interesting dynamics and twists and fun little elements and stuff in a way that really like hooked me in, and like, man, I want to keep playing this. It also just like looks so good. Their 3D interpretations of this artist's model have gotten so well done. The sprite work is really good. Like, this is really weird of me to say, but like they turn various ways, right? Like, I feel like a lot of sprites, like, usually they're face forward, they might move their head a little bit, but there's a lot of these where, like, they're turning to the side, right? Or they're turning around. It feels very dynamic, and I think the combat encourages you to get your units killed. You get more points that way, and also it increases your like special ability gain rate over time, and they come back at the start of each wave. This is like a plot element that adds like an interesting dynamic to like the tactics gameplay, right? It's actually good to put your units in sort of dangerous situations so that you can then sort of turn it back around and exploit it in the next turn. So I look forward to that in 2 months, I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting because I can see the ways that both like people who are not familiar with these guys' work will bounce off of it, and also people who are familiar with these guys' work will bounce off of it. But it just really worked for me. I don't know.
It's your stuff.
It is. I love juvenile BS.
That's Emma Core.
In all seriousness, I feel like it very clearly has some things to say about like fascism and isolationism and stuff like that. So we'll see how that plays out.
In 2 months.
In 2 months. And until then, I got Majima.
Pirates! No, Majima. I can't believe they made a Majima game for me. I've just been thinking about that the whole time. I can't believe they did this for me.
I'm having a very fun time with it so far, which
Were
I'm glad
he and
about.
Saejima in the RGG sizzle reel like that before? I didn't remember them.
They did add a bunch of stuff from this game, and from last game. So
I just didn't remember them in there. They're like the first guys that turn up in in their coats.
I assume they probably reordered it a little bit to prioritize
that's fair.
Majima.
I guess I didn't think of that possibility too.
Yeah. I still do not like the Marvel sizzle reel, if I'm being honest, but it's
whatever. That's fine. You don't have to like it. Yeah, this game is such a silly, like, who was like, this is good?
I love how like they're really leaning into like the artifice of it, though. I feel like
Majima the narrator is so funny.
Yes, I love that he's just like narrating it. Right? Like, the first thing is like, okay, I'm going to tell you what happened to me 6 months ago. Yeah. And I feel like that sort of framing aspect of it, like, really makes the goofy stuff work. I was very worried about this being, like, too much. Yeah. And I do, whenever I turn it on, I have to go like, this isn't real Hawaii. this is fake Hawaii, okay?
Right.
Myself.
Yeah.
But otherwise I'm having fun with it.
My favorite Majima the narrator moment, that even if the rest of the narrator stuff sucked, to be worth it for this. Like 2 minutes after you meet Noah, the kid, your Hawaiian Haruka, Majima looks at the camera and is like, getting over the language barrier really sucked, but we'll skip that part.
Yeah, I know.
I was like, thank you. That was for me.
Yeah, that was good.
I loved that.
He does that in English too, so.
Good. Works either way.
Yeah, it does. You're right.
I would believe that Majima speaks English.
Sure, yeah.
He's like had to be like a Yakuza guy, high powered. Like Kiryu has no reason to speak English.
Yeah.
They've already dropped enough like hints that this might be a game where Majima comes to terms with his past, a la Kiryu Gaiden, that I'm like hungry for it.
The title in Japan is like, it's specific. They've labeled it a Gaiden game. The frickin' English title sucks. Awful.
I love it.
It's so bad.
It's a horrible title, and I have had to kind of say it to a couple of people who I know don't know what this is.
Exactly.
And it's like, I'm sorry that it sounds like that, but like it's so like I just want to play my old man crime lord tropical vacation game.
I like that the age that people perceive Majima as like changes drastically depending on what's happening at the moment. What's what I've experienced so far. Sometimes people think he's 40. Some people are like grandpa. And it's like, who is this? What does he look like canonically?
Well, it's so interesting that we've spent like 2 to 3 games now with Kiryu being like, oh, he's getting old now.
Yeah.
And Majima is like 2 or 3 years older.
I think this is like just the model they made for like the Kiwami games, honestly. I don't think they've really updated it since then, and it looks like it.
Yeah. Which is so funny because Majima does kind of start to look older in like 3 to 5, or like tired at least. Mm-hmm. But now we've just wiped that clean. Because a couple of years fishing really great for the skin.
Yeah, it helped him.
I don't think we've had a cooking minigame before. Isn't that kind of shocking?
That is kind of shocking.
I was thinking about it as I was doing it. I was like, surely these games have had a cooking minigame before, and I don't think they have.
Yeah.
And they've really decided that people yearn for chickens.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
It's
Nothing
true.
wrong with that. One little quibble. So Majima has amnesia here, probably. Yes. Right? Doesn't even know his name at the point where I'm at in the game. And Noah says to him at some point, "Oh, it's like the chicken can stay on the," he says vacant lot, but like we know what he says is on the empty lot. And that right there should have been enough to spark like a memory-based panic attack. Saying the words like empty lot to this man. I felt like that was a missed opportunity.
You're right. Alas. Every time, so I keep forgetting that Goro the tiger is voiced by a man, and it scares me every time he growls during battle. Voiced by the Japanese voice actor for Ichiban and Nishikiyama.
In his starring role. It just, like, why is there a baby tiger? Also, I do have to say, like, of course it makes sense that the reason that Majima is, like, in Hawaii has to do with the Nele Island, like, Ichiban cleanup thing.
Yeah.
And on one hand, I'm like, good. They're trying to take this story beat that was sort of, like, objectively kind of ridiculous, even though it was very central to this past game, and continue to, like, build following story on it. And in some ways that's probably good, right? Because if we had just sort of like left it, it would have just been ridiculous. And if they can build something good out of it, I'll support that.
Sure.
On the other hand, they told that story about Nelly Island again, and I was like, oh god.
Yeah.
Like, we're doing this.
Yeah.
Which, again, fine. Probably good. But also I was like, oh god. We're doing this.
Yeah.
How's Kiryu doing, do we think?
I don't know. Yeah, I continue to be... I'm further ahead than you. I continue to be trepidatious about some of the whatever they're doing with the Nelly Island stuff, however they're building on it. But we'll just have to see. So
it's good that we've given Ichiban a new jobs program.
Yeah.
And I respect the difficult position that they are in, having created a story about, like, it's cool that they have continued to address the fact that, like, actually you really can't be a Yakuza anymore.
Right. Yeah.
Like, I do applaud them for not just being like, whatever, like, we live in a Japan where, like, these guys are still, like, wild crime kingpins. Like, it's cool that they are trying to grapple authentically with the fact that that way of life has changed dramatically over just the time that the series has existed.
Yes, and they've done that by inventing a thriving pirate subculture in Hawaii.
Off in a remote island near Hawaii.
Yeah, exactly.
For clarity.
Speaking of that, just one very spoiler-free sort of thought on that. So you do go to this little pirate zone, right? I'm sure you can guess that.
Madlantis.
Yes. And
I haven't
while
been
you're
to
there,
Madlantis yet, but
they do
the
mention
previews.
that they have received a push notification from Madlantis. And I'm sorry, your weird little pirate pirate cosplay zone is not allowed to have an app that sends you push notifications.
Madlantis app wants to send you push notifications. Madara doesn't know, he just clicked allow.
You're right, yeah. It's just like... that I wanted to share that one line because I'll forget next time, and it really just took me out. I love it, but also, no, it's not allowed. It's not allowed to have a thing that sends you push notifications.
It's just convenient.
I'll also say, while I think the ship combat is pretty fun so far, ship traversal sucks.
I look forward to that.
It's just boring. Like, it's not like, oh, it's bad, right? It's just boring. It's just slower walking on a ship. That's my take on it.
Excited for that.
It feels like I'm just like zooming through like a loading zone a little bit, sort of.
Well, that's probably what you're doing.
Yeah.
I'm just excited that we can jump now.
Hell yeah. We've learned the jump.
The developers are learning that gamers desire the jump. They want it.
Yeah. The doppelganger ability really feels like a cheat button right now to me.
It does.
It's like, I don't want to do this,
to upgrade my attack, and that feels like a cheat button. Like laying waste to the Pirate King.
Yeah. But yeah, at the state I am right now, at least, the doppelgangers can still, like, just absolutely decimate a crowd in seconds. It's like, I don't want to do this fight, actually. Doppelgangers, go!
That's how it felt in the turn-based combat, too, to be fair.
Yeah,
so
fair enough.
It's, like, accurate.
Well, yeah. I'm regretting spending money on upgrading my abilities when I could have been spending money getting awful clothing for Majima.
Eventually the money will flow.
You're right. Something really unsettling about just putting him in, like, normal clothes.
It's not right.
Yeah.
It's not correct. It's like the opposite of, or maybe it's the same. You probably feel the same about putting Reen in normal clothes.
I'm so upset I don't have all the little special little clothing additions. He doesn't have rainbow hair anymore. I can't put his little clown wig on him.
Hopefully
Who
soon.
even is this?
Rainbow Reverie Report.
All right. That's a wrap on our 6 weeks of gaming.
Listeners, do you think that I will actually be able to finish Final Fantasy in the next week? Do you feel like Emma next time should aim to have 3 pick 3 games that she can talk about? Or 4 pick 4 games? Or 2 pick 2 games? Or something like that? Are you prepared for how next episode is just going to be Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii? Just kidding. Did you miss the Cold Steel report? If you have thoughts about this or anything else we talked about this week, hit us up on social media. We're on Facebook, Blue Sky, Instagram, and YouTube at Talk This Podcast. You can also visit our website, www.talkthispodcast.com, where you can learn all about the show, check out the games in the hat, and read our blog featuring long-running series, Liquid Boyfriend, and Split Screen, and maybe soon Emma's thoughts on Transistor. Find out, check back. But most importantly, if you enjoy the show, you should subscribe. We're on Apple Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, TuneIn, Spotify, Pandora Podcasts, online and on the app, Overcast, Pocket Casts, anywhere that you can find podcasts. Subscribe to Talk This.
Next week, we're talking about God Hand and Marvel Rivals.
Right. No news. No news to discuss.
No news.
So look forward to that, and then my side quest in 2 weeks, and when we roll on and on and on, boats borne ceaselessly against the tide. I can quote that line like 80% correct. Listeners, that's it for this week's show. Emma, send us off with a smile.
This week, I hope that your cat is just a normal cat that's not a tiger.